Hello everybody, it is Ebontis, and if you haven't been playing V Rising in early access, well guess what? Now is the absolute best time because the 1.0 launch is here, it's live, and it's fantastic.
I am ready for a new day.
Just a quick disclosure up front, did want to let you guys know that Stunlock Studios did provide me with a copy of the game and early access to be able to make this video, so I did want to make sure and thank them for that here at the beginning, just so you guys know that this was a sponsored video. All right, now let's jump in. Now, if you don't know what V Rising is, basically V Rising is going to be a survival crafting vampire game. You've got the survival nature of dealing with the night and day cycle. You've got your castle that you can build. You've got all your storage. You've got your looms and tanneries and all these things to build and craft your supplies and refine materials and all that stuff. It's a fully fleshed out, fantastic survival game. And on top of that, the combat's done in a unique way. So you've got your weapon abilities, and you've got different weapons that work in different ways. As you upgrade them, they get more kind of abilities that you can unlock down here. Kind of got your little vampire dash, and then you're going to have your magic that you can work through, and I'll kind of cover some of the updates to that as well. So one of the first major changes in version 1.0 is actually the addition of the brutal difficulty. So if you have played V Rising already, maybe you played, 1.0, or maybe you played some Gloomrot, and now you're getting back into it and wanted to check it out. Maybe you've got friends with you, maybe you're feeling very comfortable with what you did before. Brutal will definitely challenge you. Bosses will do a ton more damage. Loot drops will be increased, durability loss is going to be a little reduced to kind of have that give and take. But bosses will be a much bigger challenge. So if you want to jump back into V Rising and give yourself a tougher run, like maybe almost a new game plus, Brutal is here and it's ready for you. Another thing about V Rising, for a lot of the early access, it was mouse and keyboard only. So as you guys can see, I've got my keys, my hotkeys down here. If I want to cast a spell, I can aim it with my mouse. Well, they changed a whole bunch of things and made it possible that now you can use a controller, but you also see a lot of the UI changes when you do use a controller. Attacks are going to be done in a different way. When I go to cast my spells, it's going to be a little different. But again, if you feel more the action combat is better done for you with a controller, you now have that option, and I think for everybody it's nice to have both. So if that was something holding you back, controller support is here. Now, another one of the updates to the game is actually the lighting engine, and it's a big one because when you're talking about a game with a vampire, gotta go day-night cycle first off, but you've also got the idea that you need to jump between shadows. You're sitting in the sun, you're gonna get cooked and it's gonna kill you if you're not paying attention, but you'll also be able to watch shadows actually move. You'll be able to actually see shadows change position. And as you're running around the world, that also means you actually have to pay attention because sometimes you'll think you're in a safe spot and you're not. So looking for trees and cover is important. And then as day passes to night, you'll be a little bit safer. But if you just look at all the little minutia, the detail, the architecture, the plants, the foliage, the flora, the fauna, everything in here is really well done, nice detail. There's so much polish. And that's one of those things that early access has allowed more games to do, is take the time to polish up everything they want to do. And this is one of those things where lighting, while it's probably a lot of subtle things you don't just instantly notice, the overall aesthetic of the game and the feel of it allows them to get a better vibe for certain areas. See, told you the shadows move. And it allows them to just kind of make things a lot more atmospheric. And for me, it's one of the things that it didn't jump out to me at first, but the game felt right when I played it. So if you played maybe just the very first early access and you jump in now, you're in for a visual treat as well with the new updated engine and lighting and just kind of everything visual tweaked. And just a lot of cosmetics too, when you take a look at the trees and just a lot of the enemies and the just buildings, my whole castle and everything. I changed the flooring in my castle and it just brightened everything up, made it look clean. This is a game all about the visuals, and we'll talk about that more in the end. Another great change that they made was giving you a lot more choice in how you unlock your spells. So previously, if you destroyed a V-Blood, which would be a boss, they would give you a specific spell. Now when you destroy a V-Blood, they're going to give you a spell point towards a tier for a pool of magic. So take, for example, Illusion Magic, and then you take Christina the Sun Priestess. When I take her out, I'm going to get a spell point for tier 2 illusion, which would allow me to pick one of these 3. From the previous ones that I've fought, like for unholy magic, I don't have a lot of that yet, but I had an option of these 3, and I picked this one. I had 2 different ultimates to pick from, and I chose this one. Could have picked wrong, but that's kind of the experimentation. So I know there will be guides and stuff like that out there of like optimal builds and things like that. So if you really want to make sure you optimize what you unlock for certain builds, you can do that much earlier on, as opposed to just trying to have to hunt down certain enemies. So the choice about how you unlock the spells is great, and then you've also still got the ability to amp up the spells with your jewels that you can socket into them. If you're not using the jewels, you can just kind of save them there. You can tinker with whichever ones you want to do. Overall, the updates to the spellbook, the magic, and just the general flexibility you have with the entire system, I'm enjoying it, and I still haven't even wrapped my head around like all of the things that I'm able to do with it. You've still got your passives that you'll be able to get later as well. Lots of stuff in here, but just the freedom of choice is a really good change. Now, another thing you'll notice as you're running around the world is it's just more populated. You're going to find random strangers walking around. I know what that is, but I'm not going to spoil it. You'll see like a deer being chased by a wolf. You'll see random patrols, some of which you should not mess with. Believe me, when they're higher than you, pay attention because they really do hurt. Like this bomber is going to be one I definitely don't want to get tagged by, so I'm going to try and run by it. Wolf form, very helpful, but one of the early things that you'll get, by the way. If you have played, you already know about that. But these little militia camps even. So previously, the map may not have been filled out quite as fully, or everything might not have been either just like a territory for you to build in or something like that. But you'll notice as you travel around, especially like this area here, it's jam-packed with new stuff. Like this little camp here. Looks like you had just some, you know, random militia guys set up a little camp here. They got their, you know, pot of like food in the middle, and they got their little campfire and everything. And everything just feels a bit more alive, but it also means as you're trying to not be killed by everything, you really have to pay attention around every little corner, every little nook, be a little more strategic, and when you jump out to attack, if you're going to maybe catch a random street patrol or something along those lines. See, I don't want those guys to come into the mix while I'm fighting these, and then all of a sudden an area that's just like, hey, let me, you know, clean these guys up for quick supplies, turns into like a 6-person attack. And then I've got wolves running by, chasing a deer, and the next thing I know, there's like 10 things fighting me. So just the small little updates everywhere add up to a very, just a very lived-in world, a very kind of world that you're not going to be bored very often because you're more often than not trying to dodge sun, enemies, bump into a random boss on a road. There's so much stuff out here now, you're always going to be doing something. Now, I'm not going to go through like the entire run of sandbox changes is what I would call them, like the percentages here or the ability cooldown changes here. There's an entire thing of patch notes. You guys can look through all that if you want to. But they did actually add new weapons. They didn't have to, but they actually have new weapons in here, weapon types, along with everything else that they've got going on. So you have your standard axe. You've seen me use that. You've got your mace. You've got your axe. You've got your greatsword even. And you even had your crossbow. I think that one came with Gloomrot, but I could be wrong. But now we've got a longbow. This one's new. So you actually got a draw time to it, you can see. And as it fires, and then as you actually hit targets, you're going to be able to mark them. And you'll notice that mark above my head gets to be able to actually be more effective. So each weapon is really going to be something that you're going to have to learn what you enjoy using. Different fights are going to require different weapon usage because maybe you need to be a bit more ranged just to survive some chaotic fight. I probably could take all those, but I don't need to go mess with them right now. And this is just that little militia camp. But yeah, you've got your basics, and then as you get better weapons, you've got these abilities that will unlock to go with it. But the fact that you've got a longbow as now a second option for your ranged combat is really nice because the ranged combat in this game, when you're trying to, you know, creep above your power level, maybe fight something as a solo player you maybe shouldn't be doing, ranged combat makes some things viable that might otherwise be really difficult. And then also you've got another one which I have not unlocked yet called a whip, and it makes a whole bunch of sense because Castlevania, you know, is definitely part of this thing. So they're incorporating the Castlevania very well, and I haven't got it yet, but it is in there too. Alright, so we have changed location, and I've got quite a few things to show you because we are in the new territory called the Ruins of Mortium. Now, the main purpose of this is more of an end-game situation, and a lot of things are going on up here, and the first one is the big baddie. So let me show you who I'm talking about. That is right. You've officially got Dracula and his castle as a zone now in V Rising, which is freaking awesome, by the way. And Dracula is going to be your in-game, way up here at the top. Now, when it comes to this zone, you've got new enemies in here. You've got this whole new snowy environment because previously you got the farmlands, you got Gloomrot, you got Silverlight Hills, Cursed Forests. Brand new looking zone. Had to go snow, kind of digging it. And again, every time you look at the game, just the detail on, just take this rock. Every texture, the trees, a lot of work was put into so much of the detail in this game. So when you look at the environments and you transfer from one to another, really, really stands out. So you've got a brand new zone. To go with Dracula's area, you've got a new blood type. This is Draculian, not sure exactly how to say it. Movement speed increased during nighttime. You've got increased damage to enemies below 30% health, kind of a boost to finishing them off. You've got 50 to 100% health or healing received from blood mend, so your self-heal through the blood, like drinking your own blood, is going to be more effective. And then you get 1 additional bite charge and heal for 5% of your maximum health when killing an enemy using bites. You can actually do it twice, a little bit quicker. And then if you get to tier 5, of course, the 25% for everything. But this is a new blood type, and these are going to be the enemies up here that have got it. Now, I am decked out in way better gear than you saw me in earlier, and we'll talk about a little bit of that. You guys can see these guys right up here. Hands of Dracula, for example. Now, as I said, I'm decked out, so I can work these guys pretty well. But they're definitely going to give you a challenge. Some of their new attacks are potent, quite powerful. I'm just really over-leveled right now for what I'm doing here. So that's why these guys are going down so fast. Believe me, there's bosses in here. Even as my decked out status on normal difficulty, I have been absolutely destroyed. So don't worry, there's still plenty of challenge in here. You gotta play smart. So a lot of new enemies in here. I'll go through and try and highlight a few with a little bit of footage here and there. You've also got new V-Bloods. As I was kind of saying, you had the big guy at the top. One of the other main new ones is Simon Belmont. Now, he just wanders around the map. On my previous save, I was like, I don't know, level 41 gear score is what I was working up to so far. He was just walking through, like, I think in the farmlands, and looks awesome, by the way. I couldn't find him anymore for this. But, yeah, he's in the game. I have no idea how hard he's going to be, but as he is the Castlevania vampire hunter, I would imagine he's going to be pretty beastly. Now, obviously, a whip will be involved, so it unlocks the ability for you to craft whips. So I'm not sure how hard that's going to be to get to, but Castlevania collaboration is in full effect here, and when you fight him, I'm sure it will be quite a challenge. Your other V-Bloods up here are pretty crazy. All of these look pretty bonkers. I fought her at 83. She whooped my butt. Now, still getting used to kind of the higher level gear, but you got 83, 86, 88. There's plenty of new challenge up here in this territory. And I think there are 5 or 6 new V-Bloods, if I remember correctly. And I don't want to go through and, like, list every single one and spoil them for you, but her, for example, oh man. So I'll kind of work in here and show you guys a little bit as well. Now, the other thing I'll show you as we go in here is a little bit of my inventory. So when it comes to your inventory, this is the new armor set, by the way, Dracula level 9, so this is about as high as you can go. Again, as I said, this is kind of a test build for capture footage. But you've got the ability to, for one, go full transmog type situation. If you want to just be naked, you can. But you can also just go for color patterns. If you want to have a certain color aesthetic now, you've got colors you can go for. And different armor sets. Just a lot of cosmetic stuff in this game. If you really want to mess with things, you can. Which, I know a lot of people always appreciate a lot of cosmetics. Another thing are going to be some of these weapons. There are new, I'm trying to call them the right name, I should say. unique weapons, I would say. These are the ones you have to forge, find the pieces of. And you can go down to, say, this guy down here. This is one of the new vendors in the area. So the vampire merchant, by the way, don't accidentally hit this guy. I think he hits harder than half the bosses. Anyway, these are level 30 weapons. You can see they're going to do their basics to wood and vegetation and undead and all that stuff. But you come over here to this level 30 of like ancestral, and you got this level 30 of just unique weapons, forged, even better stats, life leech, max health, bonus power. All of these things take them to another level. So you've got a new set of weapons in here as well. And you've also got the ancestral weapon upgrades. So you've got these weapons. Never abandon your weapons of war. So this is just from the website. The Ancestral Forge now upgrades your legendary weapons to keep up with your progress, meaning you never have to choose between the tier of your tool and your favorite set of blood-drinking axes. So really just the idea that you can work on leveling things up as you go and kill things in this area. You'll get these Stygian shards, so you can buy these. A lot of new stuff up here in this area. I mean, these like ice bears up here and ice wolves. You got some new stuff going on. These bears, these guys are just cruising, taking a nap over here. And if it's running a little oddly slow, it's probably because I'm doing a bit too much on my computer, so forgive any frame drops. It's run extremely smooth so far, so I'm not going to blame the game for anything of this. But these are kind of the rituals. This is part of your in-game area. So around here, you're going to have these ritual sites, and then as you kill some of these guys... And again, these three out here won't really start it on its own, but it did have it trigger before. So you're going to have to kind of be in the right area where some of these things are at. And then there's groups of enemies that spawn. And then those little guys were like 50s, but then the other ones got up to 80s. I barely survived. And again, as I said, I got a pretty decked out thing here. So brutal difficulty with like a team. Maybe that's the way to go. I don't know if it scales, but I will tell you, General Valencia the Depraved, that was a rough fight. And I have not beat her. Even though I am over her level, she has got some really cool moves. And again, I am continually pleasantly surprised that when you have this many bosses in a game, that the fights continue to feel novel and fun and challenging in about the right difficulty level the whole time. Like, they've done an excellent job for normal difficulty scaling all the way through. And the boss fights themselves are always fantastic. Like, yeah, I can work those guys. She puts the work in on me. So, new V-Bloods, Draculan, I'm going to get that wrong, I think, every time. And then on top of that, you've actually got a new weapon type. Two of them, actually. The whip is one, which I mentioned, but you've also got a longbow. Now, I've got it on my other character. So the crossbow is just a quick fire. The longbow is actually a full draw. And I'll probably have a little footage on screen here for you. So you've got a full draw and attack. And then you've got like a widespread cone of attack with like 5 arrows. Again, definitely one to consider working with. And it's like, I love how all the weapons give you a different play style, so you can lean into certain things. But your UI has just been cleaned up in a lot of ways from what I've seen. The spell trees, the spell book and everything. Just UI across the board is very, very cleanly done. And I appreciate that, you know, refinement takes time, and I definitely think they got it right at this point. You also have this wheel for forms and stuff is new, and we got a new one. I love this one, by the way, spider form. So, by the way, if you zoom in on this guy, it's probably going to freak anybody out. If you got, again, if you're wondering about the detail on this, it looks so good. If you're not a fan of spiders, this is probably going to creep you out, actually. So you might want to zoom out a bit. But one of the cool things you can do is you can bury. And what you can do is when you burrow, you are going to avoid being burned by the sun, and you'll be hidden from enemies. So if you're waiting for health to come back, sun to pass by a little bit, maybe a big boss to pass by, maybe Simon Belmont's walking right at you and you're like, crap. Well, if you get your spider form, you can just dig underground, hang out, wait for things to pass, and resume on your journey. But I love that this little guy is, for one, kind of cute in a creepy way. And then also, the burrow ability is definitely going to have plenty of function to it as well. Your spider form is really just like one more awesome addition, because you've already got bat and toad. By the way, this thing, I know it's got like a big leap. This might be the ugliest frog I've ever seen in a good way. They just did an excellent job making a creepy creepy frog. See, if you haven't seen toad form, that's a thing. And you guys know most of the other ones, bear and wolf and stuff, you'll get those a little bit earlier. So a lot of forms up here, a lot of bosses that are going to give you one heck of a challenge because one of the many have already just put in some work on me. New weapon types, and this whole zone is going to give you a lot of in-game grinding, rotations, the rituals that are trying to happen, stopping those, and then the big enemies that spawn. Tons of stuff going on here for the end game. And again, this is normal difficulty. If you crank it up to brutal, good luck, and hopefully you bring a friend. All right, one of the coolest things, I think probably quality of life that I've seen probably anybody add, but this is one of the cool things that early access allows somebody to do because I feel like this was learned through that process. Castle relocation. Now, basically what you do is you relocate your castle, so you pick a hub for it.
The castle heart is starving. I must feed it.
So then the castle heart, then you're going to connect it to a previous castle heart. So I've got one here, and then I've got my original one way down here. I'm going to leave my original one where it's at, but this is just a small example of what you can do. Because when I started, I was like, okay, I'll start here, cleared about a bunch of stuff, and then I was like, all right, I'll go build one maybe over here, because I got some stuff I want to do over here. Maybe I wanted to build one maybe in this nook over here, so I could work on the Silverlight area. Whatever it is. Once you've got a castle, and maybe you've got some stuff you want to move to make it better, you notice this one's level 2, this one's level 1, and I can sit here and just select this one, and you can see what I've got here with it. So you're going to take your travel bags. They will hold all of the items you've got. The travel bags are here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to build everything you had previously. So place the mandatory structures that you've got. So I had a mist brazier, I got a storage chest, and then also I had a teleporter over there. Throw this right here. It looks like I placed my mandatory structures that I had my travel bags, and then complete the relocation. So once you're done bringing your stuff over, then you can relocate the castle. If you disconnect the castle heart, all structures will be removed from the new territory. So if I disconnect it, all the stuff will go away. But if I relocate, all my main structures are here. So items placed in inventories and resources will be transferred to your travel bags. Reload, switch it over. And there you go. Castle has moved. Small chest is here with the stuff that I had in it. Castle heart still has the blood that's here. All of this stuff is just ready to go. And I can't tell you how awesome that is because it's just one of those things I don't know if I would have even thought of. But if you get to a point where you're like, cool, I found a new base, and this thing's just a big, giant, open, way bigger area than I had before, I could get to the point where I'm like, well, maybe I don't really need to come down here as often because I could probably teleport since I've got all these options. Maybe I want to move my main castle up to this bigger space because this one down here is a bit more of a weird angle, not quite as big. And then if I come up here to this one, size-wise, probably not much bigger. But if I'm going to make like one probably giant square or rectangular castle, this is probably a better form to do it. But that's just one of those, don't feel like you're stuck because now you can move just about everything. Now, going through and rebuilding and refining like an entire thing, cosmetics and all that, that'll take you a while. I would save that stuff till later once you kind of figure out really where you want to settle down. But early on, if you make a decision and you want to relocate, getting the blood essence, not the end of the world. May take you a little bit, but after a while, you'll be fine. And moving your castle, not a big deal, and a really, really cool quality of life thing. So I think that wraps up a lot of the major features, but that is not all-inclusive. If you want to see everything, the patch notes are massive. There's a ton to this game. I mean, it came out a couple of years ago. Then they had the Gloomrod expansion, which I didn't really cover everything related to that. I mean, that brought in pistols and greatswords, storm spells. You had 30 enemy types there. 13 bosses came with that. That's when you got to build your castle with multiple floors. That's a fun thing that you can do, and there's a ton of cosmetics that go with that. Crafting stations, fabricators, trading hubs, weather hazards, and that's where Gloomrot, that entire whole section of the map, actually became a thing, much less what started early on. So to say that this game is just fully fleshed out at this point is, I think, underselling it, because it really is just a complete game at this point. Early access has treated this very well, and if you haven't checked this out before, if you enjoy survival and what you've seen here between the combat style and the gear and the evolution and so much of this whole vampire world that you can explore, and then if you really enjoy things, you've got so many cosmetic packs. If you're like, I want my like world to look a little different, well, you can go with like Dracula's relics. You've got the Legacy of Castlevania premium pack. This one's going to give you some really cool looking stuff that kind of goes into the Simon Belmont stuff. And overall, like, V-Rising is a really cool game, and I'm very happy to just show you guys so much of this. And this is not at all like an exhaustive showing of everything. I just tried to highlight the new stuff that we got, but in the past 2 years and now, they have made a very massive complete game that you're going to be able to play for so long with so much content. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you do end up checking the game out, let me know in the comments below. I'm going to be working on a beginner's guide for this as well, because I learned a lot in my first 25 to 30 hours or so, and I feel like there's some tips a lot of you guys can learn, and I'm going to try and gather a lot of information around the internet to hopefully bring you guys a nice collection of beginner's tips to get started. So if you haven't started yet, or you're a little early on, look for that video coming probably soon this weekend. And if you guys enjoyed this one, hit the subscribe button, hit the alert bell. You can find me on Twitch or Twitter. But if you enjoyed it, drop a like, leave a comment, even just to say hello. But thank you all very much, and I'll see you soon.